Now for global business updates, Bosin Omofaye joins us. Good morning, Bosin.
Very good morning to you, Doctor. The bow tie man. That's okay. The tradition of Dr. Akunmi Additional. I think that would be Nigeria's #1 bow tie. My closest neighbor.
Good morning.
And the only lady in green. The only one who is a bit of a blue.
Is turquoise.
Turquoise.
Yes, that's the color.
I always get that's the problem with my wife. I say it's a blue. She said, well, it's not that exactly blue. And I said, whatever it is, I just think about it in monetary terms.
Exactly.
Good morning, everyone. Also, oil prices are lower in early Asian trading hours Tuesday as traders booked profits after prices rallied to their highest in over a month on Monday. Amid fears that the Middle East could be on the brink of a region-wide war. Fighting in the Middle East intensified after Iran-backed Hezbollah fired rockets at Israel's third largest city, Haifa, and Israel looked poised to expand its offensive into Lebanon, a year after the Hamas attack on Israel that sparked Israel's ongoing war in Gaza. Brent crude prices fell 1.72% to $79.54 per barrel by 6:27 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate was down roughly 2% to $75.75 per barrel. And the rally in Chinese stocks lost steam on Tuesday after a briefing from the country's National Development and Reform Commission providing few details on further stimulus. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index briefly plummeted over 10% before recovering slightly to a smaller loss of 7.7%. The benchmark Nikkei 225 slipped 1% and Australia's S&P ASX 200 slipped 0.35% to close 8,176. In corporate news, Goldman Sachs has reduced its prediction that the U.S. will enter a recession in the upcoming year from 20% to 15%. And that was in response to the most recent jobs report, which included better-than-expected numbers. According to a note published on October the 6th by Goldman chief U.S. economist Jan Hatzius, the September employment report has reset the labor market narrative and allayed concerns that labor demand is weakening too quickly to prevent the unemployment rate from trending higher. Now, in an attempt to rebuild his government after a rocky first 100 days in office marred by misguided policies, scare taxes, and a freebie controversy, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is attempting to reset his administration. Starmer reorganized his number 10 office over the weekend following the forced resignation of his Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, due to disapproval of her performance and management style, as well as a dispute over compensation. After more than 3 months since the election, observers are starting to wonder if Starmer will be able to demonstrate his government plan despite the reform, since the Labour administration is still lacking in specific policy details. Following the full implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited dividends to the Federation account, which were earned from the sales of gas and crude oil through joint venture assets, fell precipitously from $11.9 billion to $1.83 billion. The Agora Policy Report, which examines the effect of the Petroleum Industry Act on Federation revenue from 2021, the year the PIA was passed, to 2023, provides more information on this. The generally praised Industry Act should be reviewed according to the research. Urgent need to amend the PIA to boost Federation's petroleum revenue, which points out that it currently lowers government revenue while letting the NNPC to take the largest portion. In the first half of this year, Nigerians who work in the wholesale and retail trade, as well as in the repairs of cars and motorcycles, paid 49% more in taxes than they did in the same period last year. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics reports support this. According to NBS, increases in both value-added tax and company income tax revenues are the cause of the spike in tax revenue. While VAT is a consumption tax that is applied at the point of sale of goods and services and is ultimately paid by the final consumer, CIT is a tax that is charged on the profits of corporations and is capped at 30%. All right, let's have breakfast on all of this with my team in the studios.
which a lot of people have argued that a CIT of 30% is not competitive. But in all fairness to the government, there was a Finance Act a couple of years ago that talked about that leeway for small businesses with a threshold, of 25 million, not paying VAT and all of that. But it's not competitive in a time like this, in a country where you collect less than 10% in tax to GDP ratio. And those are the challenges.
You think that figure should go higher?
30%, you want it to go higher?
No, I'm just saying.
Blimey, you'll kill me. You'll kill me. I'm saying you should go lower.
You should go lower to attract more companies.
To be able to attract more companies. And it's not about taxes going lower. It's It's about the ease of doing business. Where do Nigeria rank in the ease of doing business?
Well, the latest World Bank that was released last week, Rwanda is now the #1 in Africa in the business-ready environment. The #3 globally, #1 in Africa. That's
so
Rwanda.
you can see that we are not ready.
No, we're not. We're open for business, but we're not ready.
Taxation and everything. And we think it's a right that businesses will come because we're a big
Or
economy.
investors will come.
Investors
You have
will
200
just come.
million people, so they will just walk in.
Where's the disposable income? 200 million people with less than $1 or $2 per day disposable income. We forget that in a hurry. And at the same time, you are still putting a lot more taxation. It's just like the shenanigan that's happening with the NNPC till today.
But I think the Taiwo Udele Commission is trying to brush up things and,
I mean,
and streamline.
Taiwo Udele is doing a good job trying to brush up things. But in all fairness, when you look at it, what's the business climate like?
The ease of business is everything.
Does Taiwo Oyedele's commission account for the area boy taxes you pay in Lagos? Does he account for the motorbike taxes you pay in Lagos? The tout taxes you pay in Lagos? Does he account for the bribes that are also taxes? It just goes back to the NNPC. Look at it now. Look at a big shortfall in revenue. And these are the things we talk about because of the activities of the NNPC be shrouded in a lot of secrecy. And you can see the PIA that we advocated for now, it's already moribund because the PIA that's supposed to unlock a lot of financial assets gives the NNPC the autonomy. And you know, that's why...
To take the lion's share.
And that's why you see what we are debating with Dangote Refinery. So there's a lot of mismatch in the country, and you want investors to come. They are their way, they're coming.
Right, so when you talk about the traders and so the informal
Motorcycle,
sector
the
and
artisans,
motorcyclists,
yes.
I think for me the question then would be how many of them are captured in the system to actually ascertain how many of them are able to pay taxes? Because German did a great report recently on the informal sector. A few key trends, a few things noted there. Nigeria's employment index is dominated by the informal sector. And part of that is that a lot of them were not not captured. And so a lot of them are not. So the question has often been that when it comes to raising tax revenue, we need to widen the tax net. But when you have taxes, especially for players in the informal sector, traders, mechanics, who are barely surviving against all odds. And I'm glad that Rufai talked about an enabling business environment. Yes. It's always that chicken and egg situation. Which do you fix first? Do you sort out the business environment to ensure that businesses thrive first, or do you increase taxes and then use the proceeds of that to ensure that businesses, to create a business environment that's friendly? Unfortunately, it seems like the latter is what happens. Increase taxes first and then we will. So that's why I'm saying that a number of them, it then almost, even though it's not legal, gives an incentive for them to run away from being captured formally.
Yeah, because what they pay illegally is so much.
It's high. So
because every bus stop, for example, or motor park has its own receipt.
So they are informally taxed.
And they're printed just behind.
They're informally taxed,
and
that is part of an enabling business environment. Because if almost half or a huge chunk or a huge percentage of your profit goes to paying illegal taxes, and then you're not introducing
extortionist.
Well, they call it illegal. Well, it's informal or unofficial taxes.
Yes,
on these
because the chairman of the Agri is there, sitting somewhere with a bottle of whatever.
It's important to talk about taxes, and everyone should pay taxes, including the informal sector.
Yes.
That report reveals that a lot of money is circulating around that sector.
It's going into non-state actors.
Creatives, agriculture, the traders, your mechanics, but they are not captured yet. And then the fact that there's no provision for them in terms of infrastructure means that they continue to be outside the formal sector and we cannot get taxes from them. And then the people who collect these unofficial taxes are also not remitting to the government. So it's just in the hands of a few criminals, if I can put it that way, but it's not benefiting the potential that exists in the informal sector. And that's what I'm saying. In other parts of the world, the beauty industry, we keep talking about the potential in beauty and lifestyle. We look at social media, the creative sector. We're not able to maximize or tap into the revenue that could come from them from taxes if we could only regulate that space. But
my final word as far as that is concerned is that, look, we have a very huge informal economy that we need to take a whole lot more back to the formal sector. I think there's a report recently by the MBS or so. The size of the informal economy is now 92% of the entire economy. That means the remaining 8% or so is for those of us in the studio and a few others there. Yeah. That means that the economy could only not grow and the revenue will continue once we have more people at the bottom of the pyramid who are just down there carrying the burden of the rest. So we need to go a little bit more top-heavy in growing the informal economy.
Absolutely.
Rather than allowing people on the street to just, like I said, pay taxes and illegal.
Okay, let me start from the UK. You mentioned Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is facing a perfect storm, even after sacking Sue Gray. Now, the interview that he granted yesterday, he was saying that, the UK, well, he didn't confirm that the UK would get into the war if Israel attacks Iranian, petroleum sites in, is it Haifa?
You're correct. You're correct.
Yeah,
Haifa, yes.
But it is given that the US, UK, all these countries, they are allies of Israel. So that's a no-brainer. But a more urgent issue that Prime Minister Keir Starmer faces as he prepares for his 100 days in office is the issue of cash for access row involving Lord Wahid Ali. Now Lord Wahid Ali has been buying him suits and all those fine, specs, glasses that you see, and also fashion for his wife. And, members of the party are saying, Lord Wahid Ali is too involved in this government. What is he getting from it? He is involved in the planning for the 100 days in office. He is involved in appointments. He has access to government where it must be a very familiar narrative. Because here in Nigeria, only God knows how many people who have access to Aso Rock and who are using cash for access. So this is the thing about influence in government.
Non-state actors.
Now, to go straight to Lord Wahid Ali is a member of the House of Lords.
Oh, here we go.
Now, to go straight to China, where in China the stimulus, the raft of measures that were, introduced, 7-day rate on repo, rebate for banks in terms of their, cash reserve, and then incentives for the property sector and all of that, generated a lot of enthusiasm. But yesterday, when the Development Commission spoke, that affected the markets. The CSI 300 went down by about 9.6%. Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong also went down by about 9.6%. And we had made a point before on this table that, look, the enthusiasm that greeted those raft of measures may not last. And this is what has happened. China still has to deal with the challenge of deflation and see how, it can address the challenge to increase, to stimulate not just the economy, but also investors' interest. And now to Nigeria. I wanted to ask you yesterday, what are your thoughts about this story about GT Bank and Brother Julius over the declaration of, humongous, profits in the region of trillions? Nigerian banks now are declaring trillion profits as if they are in the US. So please talk to us about Brother Julius and GTB. Very briefly.
Yeah, briefly, I guess what's opened in the media was the locations on the video, and GT Bank or GTCO issued a very short 1-page, 4-paragraph or thereabout response. And I think some of those allegations are being disclosed in some of those reports. I'm sure some of them were public. When they got the slam in Ghana, it was the Bank of Ghana published it. It was public knowledge. In terms of if those infractions around illegal account opening of money laundering happens, I'm sure the jurisdictions in the UK and in the US have a very robust system to capture them and penalize them accordingly. Anything else after that, we have to wait more for those jurisdictions to come up with something that we can bite into, legally speaking, as far as news is concerned. Until then, we just have to take it as on the face value of what it is.
Okay, but as
unless the Central Bank of Nigeria says otherwise, issue a statement.
But as it were, the banks in Nigeria get very rich. Ordinary customers can't even get cash at the payment point.
Don't go to court.
Anyway, we'll take it. I will.